Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. The best way to describe this game was responded. The 76ers responded to whatever that mess was that they put on display in New Orleans. And I think it's pretty clear heading into this game that OKC was not very good. They did not have a lot of talent. They were unhealthy as well. A player like SGA not being on the floor makes them even significantly worse than what they already are with him on the floor. So you expected this Sixers team to be able to roll. But there's always a 3, 4, 5, 6 game stretch from a good basketball team throughout a regular season where they're just in a funk. They're just in a rut. And it did seem like, hey, there was this mini stretch for the Sixers where they just weren't the best version of themselves and they weren't able to get back into a flow of things. Well, in a second half of a back-to-back, when they were short-manned, without Tobias Harris and Danny Green, they just cruised. They cruised through, and everybody essentially stepped up. So I will give them credit for stopping the bleeding. And there were two ways that this was going to go. It was either that rut continues, and we come down in the basement afterwards, and we're all fired up, screaming into this damn microphone, and we just go down that road of, hey, something's not right. They're not in the form right now. What's going on with Ben Simmons? We go down that road, or guns blazing right out the jump. Monster first quarter, 37 points. And I'm not saying specifically has to be that, but I'm just saying it went one or two ways yesterday. It would have went one or two ways. That rut continues, and we're just annoyed and irritated by it because you're going up against teams like New Orleans and OKC, even though it's on the road and it's not easy to travel and have to hit all these other spots, especially when you just had a monster road trip, came home for just a handful of games, and now bang, before you know it, within a blink of an eye, you're on airplanes again and you're rocking hotels again and you're just back on that grind. You know, it's not necessary. It's not, easy, and there's a grind to it all. But, yeah, they should have been able to just cruise through these teams. It would have been not so fun to watch them go down if they were out-competed, if they were getting worked on the glass. Hey, Tony Bradley, did you have fun last night? Oh, jeez. Yeah. Good luck stopping Joel Embiid, especially after a night where he has a bad night and he puts up shots afterwards because he knows he's unhappy and he holds himself to a higher standard. I would hate to be the guy that has to match up against Joel Embiid after he puts on that performance he did against the Pelicans, because you knew he was going to come out flying. And that's exactly what this entire 76ers team did. Joel at half had 21, 7, and 3 with 3 blocks. He had a stat line that most have, not even most, most do not have that stat line after an NBA game, but that is an end-of-the-game style of stat line that he recorded within the first half of the basketball game. And he set the tone, right? Ben Simmons and his aggressiveness, that set the tone as well. Took a couple jump shots, took a couple mid-range shots. I'm not going to put a lot of stock into that. There always seems to be this way of Ben Simmons where he gets abused by the fan base over and over again for a long period of time, and then he snaps and does something, and then it's just one big cycle. It's one big circle. It's one carousel. It's over and over again. It's the same thing. So against a really bad team that doesn't have the power to wall him off or to make him feel uncomfortable and to put him in these spots where he's confused and doesn't know what to do and feels trapped, OKC doesn't have the power to do that. So you can look at it one of two ways. Here's the one of two ways. Hey, he's doing it. It's better than him not doing it. I'll take this over the alternative any day of the week. Or the more pessimistic road, which is, dude, it doesn't really matter because when you play a more talented team, there's a 0% chance he takes that free throw line type of jump shot, which he did. And I hate to be on the negative side of things, but here, just because really, he took a couple jump shots against a team that is so irrelevant, it hurts. Do I really think he's going to apply that against the Brooklyn Nets or apply that against the Milwaukee Bucks or apply that against any other team that has some sort of value when it comes to a matchup? My answer is no. And I hope to God I'm proven wrong. And I hope this is something. But it's not something, right? We've said that. How many times have we said, well, I hope this means he'll do it more in the future. Oh, I hope this means he's going to start taking them more. Oh, I hope this means he's not going to be afraid to pull it. Stop. He's afraid to pull it. Everybody knows. And Joel Embiid again. If I'm Joel Embiid, I'm just frustrated that I constantly have to come out and say these type of words about one of my teammates that knows what type of player he is and knows what type of unique skill set he is. But here's what Derek Bonner tweeted after the game when Joel Embiid spoke. Embiid was asked whether he wants Simmons to look for his scoring more. For sure, Embiid said. He's a playmaker, and he wants to be a playmaker. He wants to get everybody involved. But at times, you also need to just be aggressive and make the guys on the other teams guard him. Continued. Like tonight, we saw it. I was really excited when he made those shots. He's starting to be comfortable. He's getting back to where he was right before the All-Star break. So he's got to keep doing it. Well, he's not getting back to where he was right before the All-Star break because of one game against the stinking OKC Thunder. Let's be clear. But I've been really demanding Ben's aggressiveness and going downhill for one reason more than the others. It puts teams in foul trouble. It puts teams in a debacle. If you're the coach, you now have to decide, do we go with him? Do we have to move him? It's a second foul. How much time's left? We can't have him pick up the third. It changes the whole dynamic of the game. And I know we want Ben to score more, and I'm one of those people that want him to score more. I can't have 9 points, 10 points out of Ben Simmons. I need more, dude, especially on a night where Tobias and Joel, where they don't have it. Like, hey, you got to step up and be that guy. You have the capability. I'm not demanding Shake Milton to be that guy or any other players to be that guy. I'm demanding you to be that guy because you can be that guy. If you couldn't be that guy, we wouldn't be as irritated. There's a big difference. So it's like Joel is now crying to the media once again, and not physically crying. I'm just saying we've now seen him multiple times throughout his career say publicly, Ben, I need more. You got to shoot more. Dude, be more aggressive. It really shouldn't take Joel Embiid this, right? And I wonder, because Doc Rivers is going with that approach of you guys are so obsessed with Ben scoring and you guys are so obsessed with the way that Ben gets to the basket. Yeah, Doc, because it matters. And I just wonder if there's this behind the closed doors type of nudge, wink, wink between Doc and Joel. Hey, we've tried everything at this point. It's not working. Let's play a little good cop, bad cop. Even though this isn't bad cop from Joel, it's more good cop, but hey, you push it on them. I'll say, hey, do this. Like if they kind of had this teamwork involved in, let's make sure we get Ben to be this more downhill style player because when he does, that's what is going to change where this team is headed. He is such a key piece, and if he's playing the way that he's playing, we ain't going nowhere. So nudge, wink, wink. Joel, let's team up and find a way to get the most out of Ben Simmons because he needs a push right now. He's going to need some help, and I can only do so much. I'm going to need some help from the teammates, and it's clear that there is this message trying to be sent from Joel Embiid once again. And quite frankly, I don't know how I feel about that. There's half of me that says I love the fact that Joel is constantly doing this. Ben, we need more. We need more. Because we've only been saying it for how long? We've only been trying to scream it from the mountaintop since when? Oh, that's right. Since he got drafted. We gave him a little bit of time in the beginning, but now there's no more excuses. It needs to happen. There needs to be some adapting going on here, and it hasn't. So I like the fact that Embiid is saying, come on, Ben, you got to be aggressive, and you got to make guys on the other team guard him. Think about that. Think about trying to stop Ben Simmons running full speed downhill at you. You're going to have to foul. You're going to have to put guys into some serious trouble. Ben Simmons has a mismatch issue. He doesn't know how to actually see a mismatch. He does once in a while, but not enough. Not enough. And that's a problem. It really is. The unwilling to go downhill against some of these players, it's just ridiculous. Now, he does it against the Thunder, but there's plenty of mismatches for him throughout other games with other teams and other matchups that matter more, and he is just not okay with himself when it comes to looking at the basket and saying, I'm going to do this. And now it's taken a beat. So I mentioned why I like it. Team leader, knows what's best for the team, just trying to get the best out of his teammate. The other side is it really shouldn't have to be this way. Do you think that there was ever a time where Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh was like, you know what? LeBron's got to be more. LeBron's got to do more. Or even with LeBron calling out Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. No, these guys had it. These guys were it. These guys were wired differently. These guys were mentally tougher about it. You didn't have to beg Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh to do certain things to the media. Sure, I mean, there were times where if someone had a bad game, like, oh, yeah, we can be a little bit better here and there, but that's different, all right? You didn't have to beg one of your teammates to do something to this nature. And I heard Tyrone Johnson. Yesterday, I hosted on 97.5 The Fanatic from noon to 2 on Saturday. I'm also hosting noon to 2 on Sunday if you're catching this podcast prior to that time frame. And he was talking about how when you look at Shaq, who did he need when he won? Kobe Bryant. Who did he need with Miami? Dwayne Wade. When you think about these teams and these players and these stars that go out and win, the best of the best with these big men, they needed help. Is Tobias Harris enough help? I don't know. I mean, is he really? Probably not. Probably not. Tobias is a really nice player, and he's improved tremendously, and he's a fun watch, and he's a good person, and he's a natural leader, and he's something that this team definitely benefits from. Is he that guy? I mean, I just mentioned Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade. No, Tobias Harris is not that. You need that help. You need that piece. There's only so much one man can do. You're going to need that added bonus. And Ben Simmons might have to be that added bonus. So I've been asking day in and day out, would Joel Embiid and Tobias be able to make up for the flaws? I'm starting to, and after hearing Tyrone kind of explain himself a bit about how you do need that next piece, and, you look through history and how someone like Shaq, one of the most dominant big men to ever live, still needed that extra punch. And is Tobias going to be enough of that extra punch? I started to get sucked into thinking no. Even though over the last handful of weeks or so, I thought, Danny, Tobias, Joel. And then I also saw Kevin Durant come back, and that really did change my perspective. It was tough to see because I realized, man, Kevin Durant, hey, wake-up call. He's back, and he's better than ever. And he's going to constantly be able to be a threat for you. So it's just crazy, that whole thing. Furkan Korkmaz. Let's get to some of the other stuff that happened in this still. Furkan Korkmaz looked like Gary Payton on the defensive end of the game. Oh, man, that's how you know, though, right? When Furkan's logging in 36 steals in one basketball game, don't you really know what's happening on the OKC side? They had no business of running up and down that floor. And quite frankly, they had no idea what they were going to do. I'll tell you what I'm about to do, though. I need this coffee, and I need this sip of coffee bad. I'm running on a little bit of nothing right now. It's early in the morning, so bear with me as I take it. I feel like I'm on Coffee with Brodes right now with my Eagles mug here and talking about the Sixers, freaking out about Ben Simmons. I honestly feel like I'm on Coffee with Brodes. But give me 1 second. I just got to give myself a nice how do you do so we can finish off the backstretch here. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, it's amazing. I feel like I have the same reaction every time, too, like those first couple of sips where it just runs through my veins. I digress. We could talk about that more on Coffee with Brodes. Furkan Korkmaz did make some shots. He ended up with, where was his stat line? 4 of 10 from 3, 7 of 13 from the field. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you really want to put stock into this Furkan Korkmaz performance, by all means, you can have at it. He's been pretty damn quiet for some time. Normally, he gets a game like this, and then he continues to get some run, and maybe he plays a little bit better. But I don't know if he's going to have the opportunity to log this amount of time, considering Danny Green, Tobias Harris is going to be back. And that is something to recognize here, though. When you are not playing your best and you are in a little bit of a funk, and then you lose Tobias and Danny Green, which are very important players for you this season, it does make it a little bit tougher. So I will stress the mentality side of things where, I think they handled it that way. What Doc Rivers said after the game against the Pelicans was, I didn't like where they were mentally, and this is rare for this team. When you think about where we've been this season, there's not many times where in the fourth quarter, late down the stretch, you're having the possessions that you're having where Ben Simmons is chucking up an ugly look and you're passing the ball out of bounds while you're allowing a team to just dominate you like Zion Williamson, getting to the basket and getting the bucket that he wants to get. That end of the game couple of possessions and just where you were upstairs in your brain, that's not normal. So put it to the test. Show us that it's not normal. Make sure you allow everybody to see that that was just your mistake game. That was just your error game, and put it behind you. And they did answer the bell from the mental state. Don't allow it to be close. Don't give them any time and space. Get out there, make your shots. Don't just settle. And you saw the difference, too, with Joel Embiid and just the way that he was dialed in and where he was able to get his shots from. And this time he was knocking down those mid-range jumpers as well. And look, Steven Adams is a tough match for him. There's no denying it. Steven Adams is a pro's pro. He's a big dude. He plays tough. So he's going to give you a tough night at the office. He's going to make sure that there's going to be some intensity involved. And maybe early on in that game against the Pelicans, Joel realized after a tough possession that, hey, I don't know if I want to bang low right now. I don't know if I want to do that tonight. Not feeling it. My knee, the knee brace. There's been a lot of talk, too, after the game to yesterday, not tonight, yesterday's game against the Thunder. I know I'm kind of bouncing around here against the Pelicans, against the Thunder, against the Pelicans, against the Thunder. But I'm just making sure I keep it proper on the timeline here. He did mention that knee brace is a little bit of an issue and he can't stand wearing it, and maybe we'll see something different with it off, but I could imagine it's a little bit of an issue. It makes things, I don't know, cause discomfort where you don't feel as smooth out there, and when you're going up with your jump shots, you can just feel the knee brace on you, and it throws you off just a tad, just a hair. We all know if there's something just a little bit wrong, you can overthink things. I had this weird thing when I played hockey, and I don't know why I did this, but I would always have to look down at my skates prior to a face-off, sometimes even in the middle of the play. If I was a defenseman, but if the play was up into the offensive zone and I'm skating up, I got to look down, and if I didn't, I would be all out of whack, and I would just be out of touch, and I'd be out of rhythm. And not that compares to wearing a brace, but I know that feeling where you just know something isn't right, and if I didn't look down at the time where I needed to, I knew something wasn't right, and it would throw me in for a loop. And with Joel and that knee brace, although it didn't really seem to be that much of a problem with his 27 points big picture, I could just imagine, though, when he's rising up for a jumper, when he's trying to provide something on the defensive end, and he just feels that knee brace rub against his skin, hey, that's not supposed to be there. And, just something to continue to look at. You can tell there was an agenda out there on the floor. And that's what put a smile on my face. It wasn't very entertaining. All right, it wasn't one of those games where you're on the edge of your seat. It was sort of background noise at some point. Once you get that deep into the bench and your Isaiah Joes of the world are out there running, and that back bench players are utilizing this for prove-it time to Doc Rivers, once that'll happen, and that was even later in the game, I'm even talking before that, this was a background noise game. There's no way it held your interest to that length where you were just full-on engaged, nonstop, but with just this big, happy feeling inside of you. It's like, all right, good. But the agenda was there. Shove it up their ass. Really, just shove it up their ass, and let's move on to Dallas, and let's salvage what could have been a bad road trip by winning their next 2 games and heading to Dallas, which will be a tough out, but I can't wait to see how Ben Simmons goes on Luka, because we know defensively what Luka has done against Ben. That's right. Luka has had tough days at the office, so it'll be fascinating to watch Ben put the clamps down. The Pelicans game was unacceptable. They were unhappy, and internally they wanted to make a statement. And all of that absolutely happened. Seth Curry put up a donut in New Orleans. He responds by not so much shooting the ball well from 3 because he only shot 1 for 5 from deep, but it was more about just his field goals and making 5 shots total. He went 5 of 11 from the field. So just nice to see him kind of get some shots back up, see the ball go through the hoop. From Seth Curry's perspective, he did have some nice things off the dribble, and you're seeing things utilized with some picks and all. So just something to see with Seth Curry as you kind of go through this backstretch. But here's another thing with this team. You kind of have your identity already. So in terms of like, hey, if if Seth Curry shows me this, does this mean anything for the future with this team in the playoffs? I think everyone has their role. There's no more changing. George Hill is going to come in, so yes, that will change the way that you run a half-court set, but I'm just talking about individuals, who they are in terms of growth. Can they do more? Are they going to add? Like, every player at this point has shown you enough through how many games of the season we are at this point where they are who they are. I don't think anything can truly change with any of these teams where you think any more or any less of them. You should already have your feel on who these teams are, what they're all about, their tendencies, their strengths, their weaknesses. There's no change going to occur. So if you have a couple bad losses, I don't change how I feel about this team. If they have a couple wins, I don't change how I feel about this team. Kevin Durant coming back did put it more in perspective for me. I was feeling myself a bit when it came to this team, and I thought, hey, they could bang with the best of them, and I still do think they can. I just think Kevin Durant and that Nets team is scarier than maybe I thought while there was such a long period of time without Kevin Durant. I thought the Sixers maybe could have given them a better run than maybe I think now. But ultimately, well, if Seth Curry can do this, well, we know what Seth Curry is. If Ben can do this, we know what Ben is. If Tobias and Joel can do it, we know what that is. There's no more. I don't think it's possible to change where you feel this team is going to be based off of any more regular season games. They are who they are, and we should all have an understanding on this is their personality. This is who they are this season. Under Doc Rivers, this is their style of play. This is your Sixers team. And then now you can start comparing it to, is it good enough? I did see a change, though, and this was more based off of personnel, and I know you're not going to get this in the playoffs, so it is different, but you did stagger Ben and Joel more in this game. Once again, probably more because of what you had out there on the floor. But my point is, damn, isn't it wild that your team looks better and you don't lose as much when you go to the all-bench lineup? Like, when you go to the all-bench lineup, it is so terrible, and I can't stand it. And the team looks lost at times, more times than not. There's a handful of moments you can pick and choose where they held you in there, and there's a bunch of times where you realize this is absolute trash, and it's putting your team in such a terrible spot when your starters get back into the game. That's the more common one than the alternative. When you stagger Ben and Joel, hold on, maybe there's something to this, but you're never going to see an all-bench lineup in the playoffs. It's more just regular season stuff. So, what does this really mean? I don't know. I'm just saying, isn't it obvious when you make sure that there's always one man on the floor that can be insanely successful, that you're going to have a better opportunity of keeping your team somewhat on rate to stay where they need to stay instead of throwing out Shake, Furkan, Matisse Thybulle, Dwight Howard, and Mike Scott and expecting something crazy to happen. And I know your goal at that point is to just hold your own, keep it afloat, don't get destroyed by too much, but I just feel there's a better way to do it. We're so deep into the season, I don't anticipate much changing, but, just something that my eyes recognize, that's for sure. Speaking of Mike Scott, how about that? 5-9. He went 3 of 6 from 3, had 13 points. Maybe Mike Scott realized, they signed someone to a 10-day contract. I heard some footsteps. Let me make sure I drill my shots. Mike Scott is, Mike Scott is something, though. What a couple seasons for Mike Scott. He is all over the place, to say the least. All over the place. Ooh, just like that coffee. Before we move on to the Anytime Hotline, though, there's one thing that did bother me, and I know this is my brain maybe being a little bit harsh and thinking things a different way than other people. To see Matisse Thybulle, and I remember in the game, watching the game, I was looking at the box score. All right, let me look at Matisse Thybulle because I think something happened here, and I'm like, oh, I'm right. He didn't take a shot for way too long. I'm talking way too long. And as I thought that and as it registered in my head and I'm looking through the box score, I look up and I hear Mark Zumoff, Thybulle for 3, yes! And I'm like, oh, of course. It's like, what? The basketball gods read my mind. He only put up 2 shots. Matisse needs to get better at shooting the ball, and he's not a player that's going to force his shots. He's not just going to take shots, but damn it, he should. In a game like that, he should. That's the time when you need to. I'm not demanding that to happen against all these other opponents that matter more, but these are the games, just like Ben. Ben's taking mid-range jumpers. That's not Ben Simmons, but he's going to force it a bit just to try and get that going, all right? When Matisse Thybulle, like, this is the game where you should have 5, 6, 7 shots from 3. Give me 5, 6, 3 attempts. To only have 2 field goals. And I know this isn't a major issue because he's not just going to become a guy that's going to be able to give you 5 or 6 3 attempts in the playoffs. And, hey, if he doesn't now, he'll groom into that by the playoffs. No, that's more of a bigger picture for Matisse Thybulle, more so than anything. But these are the games where you can work on some things, and these are the games where maybe you can get up a couple more shots in areas that you would like to work on your game because you know that if you do miss or if you do make that mistake or it is a bad shot or whatever, you'll be all right. You'll be okay. You'll find a possession to make sure that you make up for that mistake, or you feed Embiid and let him go into the paint and let him just establish himself, and you'll be fine. A couple bad possessions just to work on something against a team that seriously does not deserve to run up and down the floor with you. I think you'll totally be all right. So, all right, why don't we take some phone calls? But before we do, did my mouse just die? I charged it all night long. Oh. What's going on here? Oh, no, it is. It's moving. Now, why isn't my light going on? Did I hit some settings to turn the light on? Aha, I did. Shame on me. Before we take phone calls, I do need to let you know about my friends over at DraftKings. There are so many different odds and promotion boosts happening right now on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. You do not want to miss it. Golf and the Masters. Professional basketball all throughout the NBA every night. Player props, live betting. You can take all sorts of phenomenal boosts involved with DraftKings, so make sure you head over to the app, check all that out. You got the NHL every single night. Major League Baseball's back in action. You want to take a shot at Aaron Nola and his over-under and strikeouts? Have at it. You want to look at the run total for the Phils and the Braves? It's a no-brainer. So much action. You do not want to miss it. What you need to do is download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use promo code Brodes when you sign up to check out all of these phenomenal odds. That is promo code Brodes. These odds and promotions are available for a limited time. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. In partnership with Meadows Racetrack and Casino. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's pull up our folder here of all these phone calls, and bang, here we go.
Really nice the Sixers take care of business. Again, they're a team that bounces back pretty well. I've noticed there haven't been a lot of times where it's like, oh, wow, those are 2 bad losses in a row. Usually if they have a bad loss, they bounce back in a good way, and they did just that tonight. The role players hit their shots. Joel Embiid did the thing. Ben Simmons was okay. He could have been better, as usual. And, you know, especially on a back-to-back, these guys could be tired. They really came out with energy, and they just got the win. You love to see it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you make a good point where, you know, with the nature of this team this season, for the most part, they do respond. And for the most part, if things go south and you're unhappy about a loss that they should have beaten that team, they step up. They do. Eventually, they step up. I'm not saying it's always pretty or it's always gorgeous or it's always the best-case scenario, but there's a reason why they're at the top of this Eastern Conference. There's a reason why they're in competition. Now, I did see that the Brooklyn Nets, let's go to the Brooklyn Nets schedule. I'm pretty sure they lost to the Lakers in a bizarre game where Schroeder got kicked out and Kyrie Irving got kicked out. So they ended up losing to the Lakers. They did. And when it comes to the standings, right now they're both tied. And they play, I just want to see if it lines up perfectly. They play the Brooklyn Nets, play the Timberwolves. So they both play one more game before their matchup on Wednesday is my point. So if they both win or if they both lose, you could see a situation on Wednesday where they go up against the Brooklyn Nets for first place. And even if it's the other way around, let's say one wins, one loses, there's still a lot on the table here just to put yourself back into a spot. So that's really fascinating for sure. That's a different element for this matchup on Wednesday. It's a shame you're not going to get the full squad. Now, the Brooklyn Nets haven't had the full squad all year long. One guy's out, one guy's in. KD's not there. James Harden's not there. Lingering issue here with the hamstring, KD's injury in the past, this and that. I mean, it's so much with this team where you never really get them at their full capacity, which it puts a damper on it, but at the same time, there would be enough there with Kevin Durant, with Kyrie Irving, to still get some sort of understanding on what this team would be against them. Not to look too far down the road, but you are looking for certain matchups and like, hey, how can this all work? The problem is, if you get a way to stop Kyrie, well, there's a different player out there that changes how you defend Kyrie because you'd have to focus on James Harden too. So, it does change all of that, but yeah, just something to think about when it comes to this team. In terms of, just handling business, they professionally got it done. And there's a reason why when you go to the standings and you see that this team is 36-17. 36-17. 20-5 at home, 16-12 on the road. It's impressive. And if you look through, some of these teams are the upper echelon of the league on the road. The Brooklyn Nets are 14-10 away from the Barclays Center. The Milwaukee Bucks are 14-12 away from their home. The Utah Jazz are 16-11. Now the Suns are 17-7, and that is definitely awesome. 15-10 for the Clippers. I point this out because 16-9 for the Lakers. Or excuse me, not for the Lakers. They're 17-9. 16-9 for the Nuggets. I point this out because I want to see where do the Sixers lie with the away from the Wells Fargo Center compared to everybody else that we look at as a natural contender, a team that can win a championship. They are in the same area as everybody else. So when they have these losses and it's like, oh, they did lose, it happens. It happens. Doesn't mean I'm always accepting of it, but it happens. They're in the same ballpark as every other team that you look at as a serious threat when it comes to how they play on the road. Just saying. Just saying.
Hey, Brodes. Great game. I was really impressed with Joel. He looked like he actually wanted to play tonight. I mean, yesterday against the Pelicans, I don't know if it was Steven Adams. I mean, I know he's a big guy, real intimidating. Zion, I mean, he just didn't want to get to the – he just was shooting – he was settling for mid-range shots the whole game. In this game, he was actually trying to insert himself, got to the line, was driving. He was impressive. Ben, 10 points in the first quarter. Loved every second of that. I love when he's aggressive. All around great game. We needed this. Nice bounce back. On to the next one.
On to the next one for sure. Yeah, with Joel, I mean, effort's never really a problem. So to start off the call, and I'm not saying you meant it in this way of, taking a serious shot at Joel Embiid based off of what he has given us this season, but, it looked like he actually wanted to play today. Well, how many games did you watch Joel and say, you know what, Joel didn't feel like competing that night? That might be the only game of the season that stood out to me. Maybe. I mean, I'm sure out of the 50 games they play, there might be another one early in the season that I'm forgetting about. But even if that is the case, there's never really a moment where it's, hey, you know what, Joel just didn't feel like working hard. Effort's never in question when it comes to Embiid. It was odd, though, to see, and it was such an outlier that it's baffling. And I do think there is something to be said about Steven Adams. it was the matchup, and I think he recognized that it's going to be a long night if I constantly do that, and maybe he didn't feel right with the bone bruise. I don't think it was just because of Steven Adams. I think it's Steven Adams plus. If there was never the bone bruise, if there was never the knee brace, if there was none of that, I think he might have looked at the approach to that matchup differently, and I'm not saying that that's right, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for him, but I've seen Joel Embiid shine in those moments where there was a matchup that maybe you can look at as an opponent that can run with Joel. Not that there's many, but there's guys that can work with him a bit. Marc Gasol was always a problem for him, but he didn't I don't know. I mean, he's a different mental spot in his career now, so there were times where he would shy away from some of those matchups he knew gave him problems because it wasn't ready yet as a player, and now he does seem to be more involved and more engaged and more prepared and more determined to make sure if there was something that did go one way before, he's going to now be on the other side of that battle. So there is a mental switch, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's just because of Steven Adams. After hearing him discuss how uncomfortable he is with the knee brace, there's got to be a correlation between all of it. It's different. It's different for us to see him in that night, and that's why I think it was more just hey, it was a flash. It was a tough one. It was a, hey, we're human type of night, and let's just push forward and put it behind us. And if we win the next 3 games, no one even remembers that. And I remember saying that a couple times this season where they lose to a Colin Sexton Garland team, and it was terrible, and all the fans were in disgust. And I said, if they win the next 2 games, no one even thinks about that Cavs game. And I remember they had a key opponent up next, and they just cruised with a nice win, and no one ever remembers that Cavs loss. It's crazy how that happened. So you take care of business against the Mavs, you do good against the Brooklyn Nets, and that game against the Pelicans is all said and done with. You don't even bring it back up.
What's up, Brodes? I'm here at the Sixers beat the Thunder 117-93. It was a good bounce back win by the Sixers tonight after a disappointing loss last night to the Pelicans. And Embiid bounced back nicely. He had 27-9. He had 4 blocks and I think 5 assists. He did really good tonight. He was driving. He was making his jump shots. That's what you just love to see from him. The Thunder, I mean, they're not that good of a team, obviously. They are rebuilding, but they'll be better soon. Korkmaz had a good night. He had 20. He had like 5 steals. I loved his play tonight, and then Mike Scott made some threes. Ben Simmons, there was a shot and jumpers that went in. He needs to do that more. But good one by the Sixers tonight and going to the Mavericks.
The problem I have with the we need to see that more, yes, we do. But why should we expect change now? What makes you feel good about Ben Simmons doing that and thinking that he's going to apply that to his game and now utilize that all the time? Is it nice that we saw it? For sure. I'd rather see it against the Thunder than not see it at all. But there's no way, based off of what I've seen, that I can sit here and say, you know what, Brodes, you know what I think is truly going to happen? He's just going to start doing that consistently now. There's no way. There's no way in hell that I am going to convince myself, because I witnessed it against a team that is so bad and in territory of what was thrown out there is the process type of team. There's no way I see him do that against the process, and then he's going to then approach it with that same mentality against other teams. There's no way. There's been if he was going to do that, it would have happened already. There's been so many games where he hasn't. Where why would it automatically click? Because we're screaming at him? Because the pressure is like no other? Because the intensity has raised from us fans? Well, guess what? We've been this way since day one, essentially, right? It hasn't maybe been as brutal because we've now expected him to grow as a player, and since that has happened, like in the beginning, yes, there were irrational fans that expected it to happen in year one, and that's not fair. But every year it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. How many people are falling off the Ben Simmons hype because at some point when you should be able to demand your player improves in an area, and when you get it at a snail pace, well, we need it more than a snail pace, Ben, because by age 35, you're going to have a 6-foot jumper. We need you to have way more than a 6-foot jumper at 35 years old. I actually had a caller, and I'll leave you at this point. I had a caller on 97.5 yesterday that mentioned that he's so worried about Ben Simmons and the contract they're going to have to give him next. And I'm like, dude, you're worried about the contract next. He's not a UFA until 2025. So you're telling me right now what you're worried about is what they're going to have to pay Ben in 5 seasons? That's the last thing I'm worried about right now. And yeah, he's making 30 now, 33, 35, 37, 40 in the next few years. I ain't worried about what's going to happen next and what you're going to have to sign him to. Worry about what's happening now and this possible playoff push and championship run you're about to have in the next handful of seasons with Joel and Ben. And Tobias, I am not worried about the contract. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What? We're worried about the contract of Ben Simmons? The next contract. If you were going to bring up, hey, I'm worried that we got to pay a man $40 million and he might not be able to be what we need him to be, that's a reasonable conversation. But what was brought up was if we could find a way to move Ben and just, and I think this was a different caller, though, that was kind of building off of what was said earlier. Move Ben for $40 million and establish all of these shooters and get shooters and spacing with that $40 million. And the problem is, if you just had a bunch of Seth Currys and Danny Greens with Tobias and Joel Embiid, I don't think that's good enough. You don't have enough defensively. You don't have enough what you can do without those guys on the floor. Like, you can't just take Ben off the floor. And that's one thing. I'm okay with trading Ben. I used to be anti. I'm cool with trading Ben. I'm not trading him for Aaron Gordon. I'm not trading him for these guys. I'm not trading him just to get rid of Ben Simmons in the offseason. And that's a conversation for another day. But I am not trading him just to get rid of him because we're irritated. I'm not emotionally getting rid of the guy. It needs to be for legitimate compensation. James Harden, Bradley Beal, and obviously James Harden just got traded. But if you can get moved for that style of player at the trade deadline, that's what I do it for. I don't do it for a bag of basketballs and Aaron Gordon and an okay player. No. I know we're annoyed and bothered, but we're not just moving him to move him just because you can't stand it anymore. You got to get the proper compensation. That would be a horrendous move, 100%. That would be a horrendous move. So, thank you all so much for listening. Dallas on Monday. Can't wait to see how they play. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.